I work for Video Interact with Jack. We've been working in ScenarioVR since, I don't know, November 17, I think, John. So it's a while now. So, and what I wanted to do was talk about creating stories specifically in ScenarioVR, because we really like ScenarioVR and we find creating stories is quick, realistic, affordable, and really effective. So we started working in ScenarioVR because the team who works in ScenarioVR is a collaboration of my colleagues Laura and Jack Hill, and also Jack Gaylor, so we're a combination of a film team really and an e-learning team. Some of you guys may know some of our work already. Our work for South Wales Fire and Rescue was one of the first pieces we ever did. You can find it on the CenarioVR app, and it's very, very popular. As Jack mentions, we've won a bunch of awards recently for our work as well. The Fendi Awards that we put in some awards with eLearning Brothers last year, won awards both in the States and in Australia. So we're really proud of that. You'll also find some of our work on the eLearning Brothers website under the customer examples. So what I wanted to talk specifically about today was a couple of healthcare examples that we've been working on in the last few months. So this is we've been working for Europe's largest employer, which is the National Health Service in the UK, and employs 1.3 million people. And you can actually see and experience some of the course in our website under the Stroke VR bit. So you can actually do part of the course yourself if you want. So our strategy is to lead people, is to use stories to lead people through a VR experience. And that's a delicate balance of creator-led pathways and exploration by the learner. So VR and ScenarioVR gives you the learner the great opportunity to explore things themselves. So what we like to do is present things up and then let them explore. Sorry, I've just skipped forward a slide. So the two examples that I wanted to talk about specifically were where we created realistic and naturalistic experiences where you feel in the midst of the action. So one was what happens when you go into a hospital with a suspected stroke through the emergency department. And the other one was what it would be like for a doctor returning to work after an extended absence. So creating a course with a story in ScenarioVR allows you to relate to the strict medical protocols which govern the clinical practice while showing the interactions which affect every case in a much more human way. And that human element we think is really, really important. So in both these courses, we simply followed the healthcare professional's lead for the content. We constructed a plan for the shoot that encompassed all the required information, working out what would be best shown in 360 and what would lend itself more to the linear film in pop-ups. We like to use linear film pop-ups. So well briefed in advance, the clinicians simply play themselves, doing what they do in real life. So everything is planned, prepared, and briefed, but nothing is scripted. It's really important when you're working with people who are not professional actors that you don't necessarily want them to try to teach them to learn a script or do anything like that that's outside of their normal job bounds. If you let them do what they normally do, of course, it comes across much more naturally, and if they know their job, then it is natural. Now, film or video is essential for this because it's excellent in showing soft skills, because we as human beings are designed to read emotions and what's going on, and that, of course, gives you all the nuance that you want. So, to create a course with a narrative, with things to do in the 360 environment is always our aim. We believe it's not just about being in 360, but you have to give the learner things to do and discover as they progress. Whenever I see anything that's in 360, I go, okay, I'm in 360, I can look around, doesn't matter what sort of device I'm in a headset, yeah, it's really interesting, I'm in 360. Okay, what do I do now? That's where the interest comes in. So in these courses, both these courses, we use a number of devices to engage the learner. So the first example here is what they call in medical circles in the UK an S-bar, and you can see there's Dr. Lucy Jones, and there's a bit of background about her as well. So you can get to know the character just by reading that information. And there's the other option where you can click on an interview and get to know her even more. Next to that, what we like to do for the medical sessions is to provide real live medical information as well. And you can see there's a monitor, like the one that you would see on a bedside in the hospital. The other techniques we use are a question set, which you're quite used to, obviously, in e-learning. But the other nice thing about this is that, as you can see at the top, Jack put in a timeline, because this is a stroke scene. You've got a limited amount of time from 11:30 to 3:30 after the person's come into the emergency department. So what you try to do is to create a more realistic scenario where there's a certain amount of, well, tension and jeopardy in there as well. Another technique that we like to use is to do an off-screen phone call as well. So here the consultant, the stroke consultant, is talking to someone who's acting as the patient's partner, because the stroke patient in this particular case wasn't able to engage, as is often the case, with all of the medical decisions that need to be made. So we set up an off-screen phone call, and that adds, and we produce it as a pop-up video within the scene as well, and that adds drama to the situation. The other thing that we've done on a frequent basis, you can see the timeline across the top as well here, is to illustrate the chart, a real chart, medical chart, like you see at the bottom of the patient's bed. So if a clinician or a medical professional comes into this 360 environment, they've got the monitor going, they've got the chart going, it's just like in real life, that they can immediately assess, what's going on with that particular patient. And the other thing that we really like is interviews. And there's an example of a doctor here that we did in an interview. Now, we tend to do the interviews in linear film, not in 360, because you can then just pop it up under a hotspot in the scene, and you can make it people can either engage with it or they don't have to, but also doing it on a linear film camera like that gives you a better, crisper image. So in terms of timing, just to let you know, for instance, how long it takes to put together for this stroke scene. The course actually in the end took about 45 minutes or 50 minutes to do for the medical students who were doing it. It was actually designed for second-year medical students, and it was designed to take it on their cell phones, so they could do it in between their normal jobs in the hospital and their ward rounds. They could pick it up and put it down again. It was designed in bite-sized chunks. So it actually took 1 day to film, 4 days to edit, and 5 days to build in CenarioVR. So you can see it can be a very quick process. The equipment that we used, or that we generally tend to use, we like to use an Insta1 X2 360 camera, which over here I think costs less than £400, and I'm sure it's less than $400 in the States. It's the one with two 180 lenses on the side. When we were working with Ben at Queen Mary's, who's talking later, he has a bigger Insta camera as well, but we switched between the two cameras, because the nice thing about the little camera is that you can get up much more closely to your subjects. In terms of linear film cameras as well, we like to use a Canon 5D SLR. We use the Adobe Premiere software suite, and of course, CenarioVR. So that's about it, really. That gives you a quick overview of some of the techniques that we used in those courses. And these are my contact details.
We've got some QA here. Let me see if we got here. Can this be deployed on Oculus? Sorry if I missed it earlier, says Melissa.
Yes, it can.
That's a simple one.
Yeah.
Played the same.
On the CenarioVR website, there's a list of headsets, I believe, that John's put up of recommended headsets to use with CenarioVR. We like the Pico headset ourselves. So,
all right, plug for Pico.
Yeah.
Played the
say
same.
what we like.
Played the same in iOS and Android? ?
Yeah, I believe so. Jack Gaylor's probably the best person to ask about that, to be honest. But yeah,
great.
Yeah, we never didn't have any problem. The students' cell phones that it was designed for the medical students, they've got all sorts of cell phones. It was not issued by the health authority, anything like that. It's just their own cell phones.
Very good, very good. Folks, I just see some questions coming in the chat box here. That's great. We encourage you to put it in the Q&A box just so we don't miss it as the chat box gets blown up from time to time. Duncan, here's another question. Someone missed the 360 camera name. Would you please repeat that? Yeah,
Insta1 X2. So, but I'll put this, my colleague Jack, who did the CenarioVR and Lectora talk on Monday, he's put his blog up, he's put his presentation up as a blog on his LinkedIn account. I'm going to do the same with this one, so people can refer to that. So if they want.
Great. Please, thank you. Here's Brandon with a question about, so you can build Unity plugins to work with Scenario? ?
I'm answering that one, Mark. On this.
Oh, thanks.
I wouldn't be able to answer it.
I'm furiously typing, so just.
Hey, John, do you want to jump in too, so you can be part of this conversation? We do have a couple minutes here before we play a game.
Okay.
I feel like two experts is.
I'll answer that one live. So the CenarioVR apps are written in Unity, the ones that are native on the headsets. Like I think Andrew mentioned, we have 10 different headsets we support there. But no, the runtime works directly with the CenarioVR website in that it manages logins, it manages download of content. If updated content is published, it downloads the new content directly to the device. All the content is downloaded, run, and then XAPI analytics are passed back to the CenarioVR website. So no, it does not. You can't write your own shell around the Scenario app itself, because the Scenario app it works in conjunction. It's meant to be almost like a VR LMS, if you will.
Great. Great. We've got a bunch of questions here, John. Do you see them in the QA box?
Yeah, I'm rolling good. I'll hit those as we go. So the question is, have you used motion systems with CenarioVR? I'm going to assume that they mean hand tracking, foot tracking, body tracking, chest type devices. And no, the answer is no. We have not used those with CenarioVR. Certainly something that is being discussed as more and more of these come out. There are a lot of things going on in the environment as VR is exploding, as you know. So, but no, not currently. Is there a preset scene size limitation? I know with some 3D scenes, they're not always optimized for use on a handheld device. That is very true. And I've gone through this. If you look, most headsets, they also support 4K or higher, and you can put in higher scene size. Really, with the current size of scenes, with the field of view and the actual resolution of the headset, somewhere around 8K is the actual theoretical limit that you would actually be able to see. From what I can tell, around 6K is the real limit. Like putting anything over a 6K image in there is not useful. It doesn't really provide you with anything more. For video, for H.264 MP4, which is the format that we use, has a 4K limit. So you won't be able to put in anything. There are a few things that allow you to create one higher than that. It will not work reliably on all headsets or browsers even. So 4K for video, 6K for images, generally that's the highest you want to go. And the next one is for you, Duncan. It says the timing outlined about 10 days. What work was done ahead of filming and how many people worked on the project?
Right. So how much time ahead of filming did you say?
Yeah, it says what work was done ahead of filming and how many people worked on the project.
Okay, the people who worked on the project was myself, Laura, who's head of production, who also did, who interpreted the clinician, well, the medic scripting. There was Jack Gaylor, and Jack Hill and Al on camera, because we decided to take 2 cameras along. So that's 2 linear cameras. So the main work that Laura did ahead of the time was to find out what they would normally do in a simulation session, because the stroke course was designed to replace an in-person, face-to-face half-day course in the simulation center, which would usually happen with mannequins. So Laura got the material that they had from that, and she had a couple of, because this was COVID time, a couple of online meetings with them to work out what she would, what the sequence of they would present normally in the simulation center and what we would film. So I think that would probably about 3 days work all in all there, with her working out the script as well, or in effect what she was going to do, shoot plan. But often what happens when you're working with people who know their jobs is when you turn up and you talk to them about what the normal training is that happens, then they would say something like, oh, you know, at this stage, we would consult with a relative about, you know, because this person's in a poor way. And so Laura at that stage says, okay, let's, you know, fake up a couple of phone calls and things like that and have that appearing in a pop-up. So, but that all happens on the day. So to answer the questions, probably 3 days prep before that, and all in all, 5 people involved. As far as the customer was concerned, then we were liaising with the guy who ran the Sim Tech Center, and he would normally work with a doctor and a consultant and a specialist nurse who would be doing the face-to-face training in the simulation center with a mannequin. And those were the people that we, you know, actually were there for the filming, with a couple of other nurses that wandered in as well, really, or would normally take part of that. But one of the big bonuses in a way of this is that when you're with the people, COVID was a bit strange because it means that you can't do so much prep face to face.
It's strange for all of us, trust me.
Yeah. So one of the bonuses on that course was when we got to meet the people, because we had the Canon 5D cameras there anyway, then Laura's going, okay, we've done all we need to do in the sim center, you know, during that day. We've got some extra hours. Let's interview them about what their job is like, you know, and what they enjoy and what the challenges are and things like that, because that was bonus material for the students. Because one of the things they wanted to do with this course, they realized they could do, is not only show what happens to a stroke patient as they come into an ED department, but also they want to try and influence the students to come into stroke as a discipline once they've qualified as doctors. So you, in a way, you've just got to keep really flexible on the day and talk to people about the nature of what they do and what they want to get across as well. Absolutely.
Got a question about how you deploy your VR modules. How are you deploying that particular one for the NHS?
Okay, that stroke one is going to be, because the NHS, because it's, I don't know if everybody knows, but it's a government health service. It is our health service, really. We have private health here as well, but most of the health care of the nation is taken by the government. So they haven't got a great deal of money. So that's why it was deployed to student mobiles. So with the course that we're doing for Health Education England, they've just bought a bunch of headsets. So people in certain hospitals and places like that will have access to headsets. But again, the fact that CenarioVR works on cell phones, tablets, desktops and laptops are really important for them, because it means that people are not restricted to being able to get to a headset. So, and that's what people really like. And one of the really interesting things about that too is that obviously when we're talking to people about how you're going to deploy this, then it tends to change the way that you're going to produce the product. Because on the Health Education England product, it's much bigger. You go into 5 different bays in a hospital, so it's physically bigger as well. And it's difficult to interact with all the hotspots on a standard size cell phone. So it'd be much better on a tablet or a laptop or a desktop, and ideally in a headset. But because just like with the Fendi project, that was produced for, the employees' iPhones, then again, the stroke scene was specifically produced for students to do it on their cell phones.
Yeah, it's extremely important to know how the content will be consumed when you're producing it.
Absolutely.
You can produce content for everything, but if you want to produce the optimal experience on that, knowing how they're going to consume it is great. And
yeah.
There are, even if it's going to be used in multiple different endpoints, you can actually put branching conditions inside of your scenario and branch to something. Oh, do it this way on the headset, do it this way on the browser. That kind of thing.
Yeah. It's really interesting because all this stuff is so new. And so you've got to really think about it and really think about the application. And, every time you do it, you just learn something else. And the fact that the features have changed, in the last 4 years means that, what we like to do is every time we produce something is do something slightly different and use new features and things like that. Because even if someone's seen something before in CenarioVR, then you can excite them more. But generally, people haven't seen a great deal of material in CenarioVR anyway, and so you just get that incredible wow factor. They are, we were following on in the work for Health Education England from another provider who produced something in another piece of 360 software, which isn't as good as CenarioVR. And we really wowed them by showing them the work that we'd done on the stroke scene, because they literally said, we didn't know you could do this, and that's just great.
Yeah, I like hearing that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It gives you loads of scope to do what you could do. And, it's like when Laura, who's head of production, and Jack Gaylor, of course, who's just won the award, when the ideals and a really important part of the process, we think now, and we did this face to face on the last few projects that we've done. And we went to talk to Ben at Queen Mary's, and he's great at producing this material as well. It's like if you sit down with the people together and you show them what you've done and you envisage what you've done, and it's worth spending time at that planning stage, because people just don't know the scope. And if you're talking about their professional environment and what you know about the application of the software and the way that you can capture what they do, you get a really rich experience out of it.
Absolutely. Next question, I think is for me. So it's they're asking, can the content be offloaded to localized web servers on our internal network, or must they continue to be residing on the CVR servers? They have bandwidth limitations, as we all have to deal with. So no, you can take the content anywhere you want to go. So when you publish on CenarioVR itself, you have that option to host it there, and it'll interoperate with all of the CenarioVR apps. But if every other publish option takes it, you can get a zip file, which is just WebXR zip file, and you can put that in any other server you want. So you can actually host it on your LMS, you can host it on your own servers, anywhere you want to serve it. It's just when you want the analytics, when you want to have the users and you want to use the specific CenarioVR apps, that's when you would host it on CenarioVR. Another question, they want to be reminded about the camera that you used. That was the Insta360 X2, was that right?
Yeah. Insta1 X2. It's the little one it's got two 180 lenses each side. We just like it because it's neat and you can get up close.
It's in that blurry area behind me somewhere.
Yeah, we used to use the Theta, but I think the Insta cameras at the moment, I'm not being sponsored by them, unfortunately, but I think they're the best at the moment.
They're good. I like the GoPro Max as well. That's what I like the software that goes with the GoPro Max, with the Insta software, but they're both excellent cameras. I'm not going to go too far on that. Last question that I see here, unless there's more, it says, can you describe what the process looks like for getting this onto a headset? Is it exported to a certain file type that is loaded to the headset, or does it get pushed from a learning content server? I'll get that one. And that very much depends on how you want to publish. So your standard methodology would be to utilize CenarioVR. So in CenarioVR, you create your content, you click publish to Scenario, we call it CenarioVR Live. When you publish to CenarioVR Live, it's out there. We have apps on iOS. We have a native app for iOS, Android, 10 different headsets. You can just get them from the store. If you go into that CenarioVR app and log in as your user, so you create viewers in CenarioVR, wherever that person logs in, if they log in on the web, they take it on the web. If they log in on a phone, they take it on a phone. They log in on a headset, they take it, they see everything that's assigned to them. They click it, it downloads to the device automatically. They can then take it on the headset, on the phone, on the web, wherever they need to take it, and then the contents are sent back. So then you say, okay, well, what if I just want to put it on my LMS, can I watch it on a headset on LMS? The answer is also yes there. So in that case, your LMS likely supports SCORM, perhaps XAPI. You publish it out to one of those standards, whichever standard you want. It creates for you a zip SCORM manifest, XAPI manifest in the same way any other authoring tool like Lectora would. You then put that on your LMS. When it's on your LMS, if you want to view it in a headset, you go into the headset, go into the browser on the headset, go to your LMS, go to that, to your course, the normal way you would do it. The browsers are inside the headset. Then you can click on it. The content is intelligent content. It recognizes it's being run in something that can run VR. And when you're in a headset in the browser, you'll get a small goggles icon. And you click on the goggles icon, you go into full VR. During my presentation earlier, I actually showed a recording from inside the headset that showed that happening. I think I got on that. Sarah Chow wrote, is there an app you can use to create the 360 image? I definitely, and I know Duncan does too, recommend you film the 360 image.
Yeah.
But have you, Duncan, has your team used any software to create 360 images? We have some people that do that just using Photoshop.
No, you know us, we love film.
I know. Video Interact. The name of the company is Video Interact. What do? They do video. So in general,
we love film. We like to create everything ourselves.
You can use some. There's Blender is probably the most popular open source free 360 creator. So you can use Blender to create 360 images. But again, I fully agree with Duncan on this. I think if you're going to train someone on something, go to that environment and film that environment. They will actually be in the environment, right? You get a much better, more immersive feel when you've done it. If I'm going to train somebody to do something on a factory floor, go film in the factory floor. That prepares them for being there when they're actually there. So
it's actually easier because you've got the set. You don't have to do anything. You just walk in. And right. I mean, I've put the headset on and stood next to Haley, the nurse, who's in the stroke scene between the doctor and the consultant, and they're slightly larger than life. And it's really important that you look at where you put the 360 camera. But it is amazing. They're talking around you. The stuff's going on. You're standing there. It is incredible.
So there was a repost to that, and I think the answer was, is there something on the phone I can use to do it? And the answer is yes, actually. Google Street View allows you to capture 360 images just using your phone. The next thing I'd like to say is don't ever do that. You can, just don't. So what you end up, and I have to do a presentation about this. I don't have it set up right now, but when you do that, you have to take a series of about 12 or 20, some number of pictures around you, and then the Street View app will actually stitch that together into a 360 image. You get a massive amount of stitch lines in there, and they never quite line up perfect. And so you get a lot of issues where things are broken in half, and it just doesn't look good. You're better off with a 360 camera, the GoPro Max that I use. Hold on, that one's right behind me. The GoPro Max that I use. It's $4.99. You get that on Amazon for $4.99 US. Very inexpensive and very worth it if you're going to go into 360 training and all.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to add as well, the fun that we've had recently, like over the last 6 months, and doing this material where obviously we're using film, but also focusing on creating the story beyond just being in the environment, and also you know, there's a fashion at the moment that I've seen in computer graphics, VR, of them people using avatars to talk about soft skills. And I'm thinking, you've got people there. You've got people who do their jobs.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to build that world. You just get them to do what they do, because you get so much richness from the way that they relate to each other in the team, because they're used to doing that. And also in these particular cases with the patients. And that's such an important part of, you know, medical care in this case, but in every workplace it's exactly the same. People who know what they're doing work together, and you just feel, you know, the connection.
Absolutely. Mark, I'm having trouble concentrating looking at you in that headset that you have on there. It's kind of interesting. Brandon wrote, and this one's for me, I believe, can you scale heads-up display in the VR software for visually impaired folks and other general accessibility features? So scaling things, sure, there's a grow animation. You can apply a grow to anything. So if you wanted to allow somebody to have something grow, you can actually just animate it. So you would say animate something grow, and you give it a percentage, and it'll grow it. So if you need to do that, that's in there. General accessibility, like, you know, for vision impaired or hearing impaired, no, it's, you know, accessibility is generally to help people who are impaired visually or auditorily, and those are the things that make VR, right? So VR is an auditory and a visual medium, and so you know, the exact things that you know, that those accessibility features try to do, that's what VR is, right? So it's not usually something that's in there. You can scale things up, you can add text in there, but we really recommend not adding text in and not scaling things up so big, because it obscures everything in the field of view you're working with. So it's a little tougher there to say. Next one's for you, Duncan. How much storyboarding did you do prior to film day?
Yeah, the storyboarding we tend to do is script-based. So although you're not actually producing a script for someone to say it, like a film script, then that's the way that Laura likes to work. So as I said, she had a couple of online meetings, and she would have prepared the basic plan of what we wanted to cover on the day before we went to Leicester to film the stroke scene, really. But when you're filming in people's workplaces, whether it's conventional filming or 360 VR filming, then there's a certain amount of flexibility that you have to build into that as well, because it's not like a film set where everything is just stopping for you to do that task. You know, although we were in a sim center, in, you know, simulation center in a hospital, there's other things going on around, and those people, you know, they're not film people, if you like. So you just have to get into their world. But to answer the question, you know, there was, I think there's 3 days of planning and going into this, and there was, Laura would have done, you know, the storyboarding script form.
All right. And this question, probably for both of us there, is do you prefer full 360 or 180, basically blacking out the background to keep your audience focused on what is in front of you?
No, we've only done 360.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And I as well. We have some clients that just black out the background area. I've seen that used before. I think they just did that because they were standing behind the camera, though. I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier now because, you know, with the newer camera, you can see, you know, we flee the scene and we watch what's happening on the camera on our cell phones. So, you know,
and by the way, that is a part of everyone who films 360 is running away from the scene. That is what you have to do.
Of course. I mean, you know, that's a really difficult discipline for people who used to traditional video or films, because they're usually behind the camera and they're directing stuff.
Yeah. And now you're actually somewhere else. You're standing behind, but you can operate.
Yeah, that's right. And just checking this time. And then, you know, traditional cameramen hate that because it means, or camera women, because it means they can't dictate what's going on. Basically.
Right.
They have no control. But what it tends to do is we find that you get very few takes, and I'm sure Ben will talk about this as well, but you get very few takes because you've basically got to get it right. But if you're working with people who know what they're doing in their jobs, it's not a problem. So, you know, so although we were filming the consultant, the doctor, and the specialist nurse, then, Malcolm Smith, the simulation technician, was with us as well. So he was checking over what they would normally train. And if, when you're doing sort of specialist subjects like we often do with health and safety as well, we always insist that a health and safety specialist is with us to make sure that the content that we're getting is correct,
Right. Next question is probably for me. Is there a way to build virtual environments for use in CenarioVR, or is the interface limited to 360 imagery? So no, definitely it's not limited to 360 image and videos. You can put images and 360 images and videos in. You can also build them. So the input needs to be monoscopic equirectangular images or video. That being said, the simplest way to create that is with a 360 camera. That is the output format of every 360 camera in general. But you can also create it in Blender. And we have lots and lots of examples of created scenarios in which you're put into a virtual world, a true virtual world that is created in something like Blender, Maya, different things. So yeah, you can use anything. It just needs its output format needs to be monoscopic equirectangular. So you can do something like go into Blender, create a virtual world, put a camera in it, a virtual camera in a virtual world. The virtual camera takes a virtual image or a virtual video of the virtual world, and it outputs it in equirectangular format. That's the kind of the methodology. Some great questions here. First one is, and these are for you, Duncan, is how do you capture the audio for the live scenes? Are the people wearing mics?
We prefer to, I should have put that on the equipment, we prefer to use lapel mics.
Right, lapel mics, because the audio on 360 cameras is generally not great. That's usually the way you want to go.
Yeah, and we've tried it with a general mic in the environment, but if you've got, in the case there's 3 protagonists and a patient on, so in that particular scene I was showing, so, it's much easier just to mic them up.
Yeah, and this is a question from me. The X2 actually has an external mic jack on it, correct? I believe it does.
It
does. So you don't utilize that at all. You actually just probably record all those and then put them back together post. Okay. So
yeah.
I had a question. There you go. The next one asked about the good quality audio, the lapels, but what about lighting with 360? What challenges do you see with lighting in 360?
We don't tend to use, well, the problem with lighting in 360 is you can't put lights in the environment.
Right. They need to be shielded. You can put them, but you have to shield them, maybe display on a wall.
Yeah. We tend to use natural light anyway. Because you've seen that, hopefully people have picked up in the quality of the images that I showed in the presentation there, and also what you can see from us from Video Interact on in the app and on your website, John, that we take great pride in the quality of the stuff that we produce, the visual quality as well. We tend to use the natural light in those environments. So you pick an environment, or you make sure the blinds are up or whatever. So
the other one is indirect light. So light where the light itself does not show to anywhere in the room. So something that where it's shielded, so you'd have a shield and the light would go up on a wall. That would be something you could actually do to light an area, but it has to be extremely indirect.
Yeah.
Traditional filmmaking lighting does not work for VR lighting. Next question is for me, can you use CenarioVR to create AR? The answer is no. So AR and VR are very, very different. VR is a virtual world. AR is overlaying on the existing physical world. CenarioVR is it replaces it with a different sphere, so it is not AR, augmented reality in any way. There's 2 very different things you're attempting to do there with those. Alice asked if those wireless lapel mics, do they interfere with the medical equipment frequencies? Is there any challenges in using them?
We haven't been aware of. We haven't actually, where we film, they're not actually treating patients at the same time. So it's
kind of a positive, I think.
So all the stuff that we've taken into the hospitals and things like that in the environments that we've been filming in haven't affected with anything else. But of course, we're away from, we're not actually filming in the emergency department.
Right. Andrew has a question about what post-production software do you use for your 360 videos?
I mean, Jack would be the best person to answer that.
Jack uses Premiere, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he
Premiere,
does.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
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 And we just use the Adobe Suite, both.
Yeah,
for
the Adobe
the
Suite is
video.
good. So I do as well at times, but I also use, so the GoPro Max is another reason why I like it. It comes with some really good software natively on there that I use to edit that in. And when I need to compress, I actually use some freeware that's in there as well to do compression that Premiere would normally do. But Handbrake is another great compression one, and we have built-in CenarioVR presets that'll compress it exactly like you want it. It comes out with good stuff. So I mean, there's lots of options available. The good thing is that the video that produces it's still standard MP4 video, and so you can use whatever you use to work with video today on that. Unless you really want to do something special for 360, like black out the background, remove things in 360, then you need something like Premiere to do that. Alice asks a question if light flickering is a problem.
We haven't had any problems with that. We had any problems with that, Jack?
I don't believe so, no.
No, I don't think so.
I've not seen any either, so I don't think it's not an issue that I've ever seen.
Mhm.
And Terrence had one more follow-up question about capturing audio, and it says he understands they're using lapel mics, but where is that audio file captured on the camera? And the answer to that, I think, is no. That's what I had said before, is that there's no plug. The X2 does have a plug-in, but that's not what you're using to capture it.
No, Zoom, I think. There's a little handheld device called Zoom. Go check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you use Premiere to just map that into the video later. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just add as an audio track using Premiere.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Premiere is definitely the high. If you're going to be going top end, Premiere. It's the best one out there.
Thanks, Jen, for answering all those questions.